Something that represents something else by association, resemblance, or convention, especially a material object used to represent something invisible. An object or image that an individual unconsciously uses to represent repressed thoughts, feelings, or emotions. An object or image that an individual unconsciously uses to represent repressed thoughts, feelings, or impulses. One thing you got to understand about white supremacy, because it's covert, it puts all of its true messages in its symbols. Its symbols. What is the symbol for Nabisco products? What is the symbol for Chevrolet cars? What is the symbols for the Catholic Church? If you investigate the symbol, you'll really see what they really stand for. Symbols are your key to really knowing what you're getting into. The problem is we are symbol, as Professor Griffith would say, who does the whole thing on symbolism and hip-hop, we are symbolically illiterate. Black people cannot read the symbols. Next slide. What is a poltergeist? A ghost, spirit, or embodiment that manifests itself by moving and influencing objects or people. The white Jesus influences black people to act a certain way. And as one brother said last night, it's a what? Passive and effeminate white Jesus image. Next slide.
Wait, it's not like that.
How do symbols work? They clarify ambiguous information. They condition a mind and spirit into a certain belief system. They regulate thought and behavior by influencing imagination and freedom of mind. It's very hard to put a symbol out of the mind forever. Remember, your mind is like fertile soil. You plant a seed in it, sooner or later it's going to grow. That's why it's so dangerous to let our babies watch and listen to anything they hear, because you don't know how the seed is going to sprout. I'm getting sick and tired of black parents telling me, I didn't raise him like that. I didn't raise him like that. I know, but you let the TV raise him like that. They teach overtly racist beliefs and values without the use of words. White Jesus is just a picture, right? It's harmless. Anybody see the white Jesus in Brazil? Or is it in France? I think it's Brazil. They have a white Jesus on top of the mountain. Now Brazil is the blackest nation outside of Africa. And it's just as big Jesus. Everybody looking like that's innocent. You're missing the whole sum. Even though this country is mostly black, it is still ruled by us. That's the message. And we miss it all the time. Next slide. When people are not sure what to believe or think, they use symbols. Symbols can be very powerful because images direct and control direction in which beliefs and thoughts will take form. Let me ask you a question. Everything in your mind is stored as a what? Image. You do not store words. Everything in the brain is codified in a symbol. That's why in ancient Kemet, the entire language was based on pictures. You know why? Because the mind would be able to readily learn it and readily do what? Store and memorize it. Everything is turned into an image for the mind. Nothing is stored as letters. Okay? When I say Jesus, you automatically think of a white person. You know why? Not because you ain't conscious, but every image of Jesus you ever saw was white. Your unconscious can't help but bring that up. That's all you saw your whole life. Now, can you uncondition it? Yes. Yes. But the first way you got to uncondition is by doing what? Not strengthening the image that's already there. Get rid of the white Jesus at home. Problem is we still got him hanging around. Next slide. Symbols and images are very important to the falsification of consciousness, as the senses cannot be turned off. The pictures that are continuously played before the eyes will eventually permeate the unconscious and begin to direct behavior. What did Adolf Hitler say? Adolf Hitler said it doesn't matter how ridiculous the belief. If you constantly feed it to the people, sooner or later it will take hold, because the mind is soil. The mind is soil. Next slide. Next one. A white Jesus is a much safer yet more powerful way of saying the white man is God and superior to other people. The D.L. Hughley show on CNN is a much safer way to say black men are imbeciles and idiots incapable of serious thought and analysis than coming out. How many of y'all remember when President Obama was running for president, D.L. Hughley had a comedy show on CNN? You remember that? Now CNN is a what? News network. Is it a comedy station? No. But D.L. Hughley had a comedy show. Remember, he had Freddie Mac. Remember they had the mortgage crisis? Freddie Mac was a black pimp with a fur coat. And who else did he have? I think Sally Mae was on there, who was one of his pimping women. This was on CNN. And D.L. Hughley played the part. Okay? The whole thing was to do what? Poke fun at the fact that you had an African-American running for president. But nobody looked at the symbolism. Extensive use of blonde hair by black mothers is a much safer way of teaching black girls that African hair is ugly and undesirable. Everybody saw Chris Rock good hair? No. If you didn't, you need to see it. Okay? Because the way we teach our hatred to our daughters is absolutely ridiculous. Next slide. Next slide. Y'all remember this? That is Reggie Williams. He played for the New Orleans Saints. He was like the #1 draft pick or one of the
Ricky Williams.
Ricky Williams. And look what he did. He posed for the front of ESPN magazine in a wedding gown. Now most people, y'all didn't see this? Oh my gosh. Now let me ask you a question.
I thought that was a movie.
Now this man is about 310 pounds, solid muscle.
That's
right?
a player.
Solid muscle. And he does this. Right? You know what they're saying? That the only thing a black man can be next to the white man is his, and I'm not going to use the vernacular. Okay? Look at that. The most powerful running back in the NFL at the time. He was the man. Gets in a wedding dress. Would any brother in here get in a wedding dress to pose on the front of a national magazine? But he did. The power of image. What is that telling you? That you ain't no man and I ain't no man. This ain't no man thing. I'm your coach. You my.
Look at the bottom line. Rick, the deep thought, take the plunge.
Exactly. Next slide. Every time you speak, you convey an image to yourself and listener. Each word helps to build the image like each color helps to paint a picture. This is why we must choose our words carefully to ensure the listener is creating the right image to accompany the statement in his or her mind. Next slide. Black people are free. I'm going to give you an example of what I mean by images. If I said black people are free, you get one image. If I say black people are physically free, that's a different image. Because now I qualify the freedom as only being physical. Look at the last sentence. Black people are in mental bondage. That's a whole nother image. Now it looks like all three statements mean the same thing, don't they? No, they don't. This one gives you a more powerful image that is what? More realistic of our true state of affairs. The one at the top is what? The least realistic and false. Next slide. Words are symbols, which is why you have to choose your words carefully when you're talking to people and trying to impart a certain thought. Barack Obama is half black and half white. That's one image in your mind. Barack Obama is African American. That's another image in your mind. Barack Obama was born of a white mother. That's something totally different. Are y'all with me? This is key. I'm trying to get you to see how when you read books and when you listen to the media and the radio, they use words strategically to conjure up what? A certain image in your mind, and that's how they brainwash. Next slide. The school district of Philadelphia doesn't properly educate black children. The school district of Philadelphia does a poor job of educating black children. The school district of Philadelphia miseducates black children. You see? Choose your words carefully. There's an ancient Indian expression that says, be impeccable with your word. Because everything you say out your mouth creates an image in the mind of the person that you're talking to, and you want it to be exactly what you want them to see when they hear you. Next slide. Try to condition yourself to picture the images you want to convey in your thoughts while you're talking to enhance the quality of descriptions you use to properly convey your idea. Next. How can we get the minds of our children back when their heads are filled with images of gangsters, athletes, and entertainers? When we allow them to feed themselves an image diet of negative pictures and get mad when they begin to act like the pictures we have allowed them to ingest. Did you hear what I said? Pull your pants up. Why you got your hat on backwards? Why you got a do-rag? Because that's all my subconscious has been given by you. You let me buy this stuff. You let me listen to this stuff. And now we got a whole set of popular sitcoms on TV with what? Homosexual couples. So the kids are going to start acting it out and not even know why. I have kids come to me, Mr. Johnson, I don't know why I do what you do. And I say, I know. Because you've been conditioned. You're under the influence of a poltergeist. Next slide. These four things are the sources of our most powerful images and brain. TV, radio, newspaper, and real-life experiences, which is why role modeling is key for black children. We have to be good role models for our children, and we cannot expose them to negative role models, even if they are blood relatives. That's his uncle, I don't care. That's his big brother, I don't care. That's his cousin, I don't care. Why should you keep your child further away from a blood relative who's a negative influence than a stranger? Because the blood relative has more one he absolutely should not be with. Next. Television is the #1 weapon used by white supremacy against black people 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Black people fed image diet of degrading material about themselves, godly material about Europeans. There's no way you can watch this amount of negative imagery and not be affected by it. It's impossible. You can't turn your brain off. You can't listen to rap and not be influenced by rap. You can't watch a white sitcom every day and not be influenced by the white sitcom. You can't read a certain magazine every day and not be influenced by it. Well, how can I say that? How can I say that you cannot be influenced by it? Because you have a conscious mind and you have an unconscious mind. Which one is more powerful? The unconscious mind. That's why when you say, I'm never going to use profanity again, I'm never going to use profanity again, then it slips out. Do you want to know why? Because the unconscious is much stronger than the conscious mind. That's right. That's why you be talking and you boom. Next slide. Next slide. Next one. Next one. Willie Horton and George Bush. A convicted murderer was released for a weekend visit, during which time he robbed and raped more victims. Dukakis and the Democrats were winning big in this presidential election until George Herbert Walker Bush, we're talking about Daddy Bush, paid for this image to be flashed on TV screens across America. Next slide. Boom! I remember this? He was losing the election. George Herbert Walker Bush was losing the election. And somebody said, how are we going to get white folks to start voting for us so we don't lose? Put a black image up there. And this is the picture that they showed. Okay? That if you try to let black men out of jail to rehabilitate themselves, they just go on another spree, killing and harming other people. And it was this image that won him the election. Next slide. Over a period of about 5 years, Ronald Reagan told the story of a Chicago welfare queen who had 80 names, 30 addresses, 12 social security cards, and collected benefits for 4 non-existent deceased husbands, bilking the government out of over $150,000. The real welfare recipient who Reagan referred to was actually convicted for using 2 different aliases to collect $8,000. Reagan continued to use his version of the story, although it was a lie, even after the press pointed out that the actual facts of the case were wrong. Y'all remember that? And they used it to do what? Start cutting public assistance to black women. Start cutting public assistance to black women. Why? Because he created an image in white people's minds that black women or public assistants are simply hustling the system. First of all, most of the sisters I know in public assistance still are trying to get secret jobs because the public assistance money is not enough to take care of their children. Don't nobody live comfortably off welfare. Next slide. Next slide. The Great Speaks of Giza, Haruwa Maquette. The nose and the lips, y'all know, was shot off by, that was Napoleon. The 21-gun salute, when you watch the Super Bowl, you see 21-gun salute, right? The original 21-gun salute comes from Napoleon lining up 21 of his soldiers, shooting the nose and lips off the Sphinx. And guess what? They didn't throw away the fragments. The fragments of the nose and the lips are in the British Museum. Okay, because they didn't want people to know what African people were capable of doing. But the symbolism of the body, you got the body of the pharaoh, the representation of God on earth, on the body of the lion. The head of the pharaoh on the body of the lion. Right? Now, by the civilization, the pharaoh was God on earth. He was automatically Christ on the head of a lion. Why did they put the image of God on earth on the body of a beast? The symbolism is discipline. Once you refine this, you'll be able to control everything else that's below it. Okay? So we have to teach our black boys to start thinking with this head and not the other. Next slide. Every time you see a king, you see a queen as well. Next slide. This is, I'm forgetting the pharaoh here. Forget who it is. Next one. Forget the name. Pharaoh Akhenaten, first man to teach the belief in one God. He was King Tut's father-in-law. King Tut was married to one of his daughters. He was married to Queen Nefertari. I think they had 7 or 9 daughters. King Tut married one of them. King Tut was not royalty. King Tut was actually born in royalty. Tutankhamun. The only reason why you know him is because he had one of the most richest tombs that was ever unearthed. His tomb was unearthed during the Garvey movement, 1920, 1921. The Psalms of David in the Bible read word for word, like the Psalms of Akhenaten. He wrote a book of Psalms. And many historians and religious experts look at the Psalms of Akhenaten and the Psalms of David side by side. And many people believe that the Psalms of David in the Bible is nothing but his. He was born before Jesus, before Moses, before Muhammad. He taught the belief in one God. We're taught that one God comes from Christianity, Islam, Judaism. That's not true. African people have always believed in monotheism and one God. The difference is this. If they can still see the screen, Ross, you can turn the light on. If that screen still shows, you can turn the light on. Sometimes the screen still shows. I think it might. Okay. You have God, right? This is the Judaic Christian Islamic version. And then you have creation. They're not related. They're separate. Okay? African monotheism. You have God. You have creation. Within God. Which means God's essence is in everything in existence. Every plant, every animal, every rock, every stone, every person has a spirit in their own soul. You don't have to find God like you're taught here. You're already one with God. You simply have to raise your consciousness into that awareness. Y'all with me? That's the difference. When you look at the royal headdress of the pharaohs, you always see a snake, a royal. You always see the uraeus, a king cobra. Why did the kings and queens put a snake right here at the pineal gland? For wisdom. Signify wisdom. Partly, number one, if I took your brain out of your skull, what would be dangling from your brain? Your spinal cord. Held up sideways, the brain and spinal cord together look like a snake. It represents the power of black consciousness. Also, reptiles, which is what a snake is, they have one of the largest pineal glands in the entire animal kingdom. Okay? So it also represents African spirituality and pride in black skin. Thirdly, your spirit is believed to exist in the form of a coiled snake at the base of your spine, which the East Indians call Kundalini energy, and it rises through the spine, which you see when you see the medical symbol, the caduceus, okay? And in order for you to reach God consciousness, you have to do what? Will your spirit through your pineal gland, and that's the gateway to God consciousness. All that science is ours, good people. East Indian yoga is ours. That's all ours, okay? The East Indian system has been preserved because they did not suffer the pillage that Africa suffered at the hands of the European. They've been able to preserve it under different names, okay? The goddess Shiva, that's the great goddess mother of ancient Kemet. All of their entire deity system is nothing but the African system, okay? Next slide. Asaru. Now look at the royal headdress. Who wears that white cap today? The Pope. That's where they get it from. Next slide. Next slide. Okay. Queen T. This is the mother of Akhenaten. First man to teach belief in one God. This is his mother. Okay. Now when people start saying the Egyptians were not of Africa, people say, well, what about her skin? What about her hair? She actually has an afro in the statue. Now we want to go even deeper than that. When you go to some of the museums in ancient Kemet, guess what they got? They got the hair of the pharaohs, the kings, and the queens. They got dreadlocks hanging in the museums. Yes, they still got the hair that shows unequivocally that these people were African. Unequivocally. See, when the Bible said that Jesus had feet like burnt brass and hair like lamb's wool, the only race of people who grow hair like lamb's wool is us.
That's the right ball.
Next slide. And your hair is shaped like what? We fail to realize the divinity in our hair. It's curled up. Your hair is actually in the shape of an atom, the building block of the universe. It also represents the circular life of existence in the universe. That's why it's curled up. Black hair is actually an energy conductor. You ever see a radio station? What's at the top of the building that has a radio station? They have the antenna. Your hair is your antenna. It conducts your electricity and cosmic energy into your pineal gland through the hair. That's why when you comb it, it snap, crackle, pops. The problem is you keep on frying it and killing it. King Tut, blue, black, purple, they found life-size statues of King Tut when they unearthed his tomb. Guess what else they found in his tomb? A chess set. Chess set in his tomb. Chess is an African game. Guess what else they found in his tomb? A glider. A human glider. Do you know what that means? They were flying back then. Next slide. Can't we all just get along? Now, you talk about images, this is one of the worst ones. A docile black man who was damn near beat to death, and he just wants to get along. Next slide. Oh my God. I need a swiggy on this one. This man lost his mind. I don't know if he killed her or not. May she rest in peace. You know, I feel sorry for her family. They lost her. But Johnny Cochran, rest in peace. Everybody know why Johnny Cochran was killed, right? Because after Johnny Cochran was murdered. After he got OJ off, then he got Geronimo Pratt out of jail. What did Johnny Cochran do? That sealed his fate. But he had to do it anyway because he believed in truth more than his own life. What did he do? Johnny Cochran put together a commission to study how much money the United States government owed black people for reparation. Did y'all hear that? Yeah. The most powerful black attorney in the world was about to put a dollar sign on what we were owed. And then they killed him. How do we know they killed him? Because they said he died of a brain aneurysm. Khalid Abdul Muhammad, brain aneurysm. Why do they always say brain aneurysm whenever there's an assassination? Because the brain aneurysm is the most difficult death to prove. They killed him. This idiot was at the All-Star game when it was in Philadelphia. I think that was 2000, 2001. And instead of having one white woman under his arm, he had two. In downtown Philadelphia. How you just got off of this? And you got a nerve to have two. But what he failed to realize is the essential rule of white supremacy. They always get you in the end. He thought he got off, right? Now the Negro in jail for stealing his own trophy. Could you imagine that? What you in jail for, dog? I was selling. What you in jail for? I stole some. What you in jail for? I stole my own trophy. They set him up. The guy had a tape recorder. He was tape recording the whole thing. He got set up, you idiot. Now look at it. Yeah. Next slide. No more Hertz commercials. Wow. Wow. I got two takes on MJ. On one side, he tried to morph himself into a white woman. You do know that?
Yes.
Okay? He tried to morph himself into a white woman. But I also have compassion for the brother because, you know, he was abused by his father. He's physically abused. When they interviewed him, they asked him, what's the worst thing about your childhood? It wasn't the fact that his father made him grow up before his time. He said, the worst thing about my childhood was that I was picked on every day because of my big nose. Y'all see that? Look at the self-hate that was put in him by his family and his friends. Millions of records, triple platinum. But guess what? This nose was a source of shame. And he spent the rest of his life trying not to look like what he was. And then he even adopted 2 white kids. Y'all know damn well that they ain't his kids. Okay? If you want to see whether or not they my kids, you got to get the Off the Wall out. That Prince boy, that other girl look a damn thing like Mike went off the wall. Okay? They're not his kids, he adopted. But he was a businessman. I respect his business intelligence. Michael Jackson was killed because he would not give Sony Records the Elvis Presley catalog back and the Beatles catalog. A black man owned the rights to the most popular music group in American history, the Beatles. He owned their music. Whenever you buy a Beatles CD, you hear a Beatles song, Mike got paid. And then he owned half of Elvis's material. Look at that. That's brilliance. He was into publishing way before the rappers knew anything about it. They said, Mike, you got to give it back. Mike said, I ain't giving you nothing. Sony Records, he owed a debt to Sony Records. Because y'all know they sabotaged his last album, Invincible. They sabotaged him to put him in debt. That's how dirty they are. So Mike said, I'm not giving you this catalog back. That's how I eat. So guess what? He went on, he set up the concerts where he had 20, 30 concerts over there. They sold out, what, one day? They asked him to do 30 more. It was up to 50. So he was going to have enough money to do what? Pay off Sony, keep the catalog. So how does Sony get the catalog back? You got to kill him before he goes on tour. Because if he goes on tour, he's going to have the money to pay you off. You never get the catalog back. You notice you ain't heard nothing about that catalog since he died. That's why Mike is dead. Because he owned the rights to the most popular white group of all time. But it gets worse. Michael Jackson was about to do what? Destabilize the whole music industry. He's about to start a massive black record label that distributes music and everything. If he would have done that, Universal would have crashed, Interscope would have crashed, Sony would have crashed, and it would have been one giant. The real king of music would have been Michael Jackson. It would have been one of the most revolutionary things ever done by a black person in the 21st century, and that's why he did. I can't condone this, the feminization and the white thing and that whole piece, but deep down within that brother, he had a love for his people. And that's why he told you, they don't really care about us. How do you kill a man? How do you kill a man who sold 1 billion albums for you? Do you know that he's the only man in history to sell 1 billion albums? And what did your president say? When Obama was put on TV, when Mike died, you know what this Negro had the nerve to say? Well, you know what? He achieved a lot. And so now he'll probably be mentioned with Frank Sinatra and Elvis Presley. What? What? Elvis Presley can't tie Mike's shoes. Frank Sinatra can't tie Mike's shoes. Nobody touched Mike. This man got 5 albums that were in the top selling albums of all time. Thriller went 140 times platinum. 140 CDs for one album. A platinum plaque is $1 million. He had 140 for one album. Don't no white musician come close to that. No black musician come close to that. You'll never get that again. You'll never get that again. Next slide. Rest in peace, El Hajj Malik El Shabazz. Okay, they love to promote cowardice in black men. They want to show you that a black man was killed, so you'll be too afraid to stand up and speak. Okay? For the young brothers in here, you gotta be willing to die for what you believe in. And unfortunately, it's going to be your black community that's going to try to make you into a coward. Every time I go around and speak, you know the first thing they say? You don't want to end up like Mom. You don't want to end up like King. You don't want to end up like Patrice Lumumba. You don't want to end up like Steve Biko. You don't want to end up like Huey P. Newton. Look at that. Making cowards out of men who are trying to do the right thing. Ross.
Since you are Brother Malcolm, could you elaborate a little on that?
Okay. As y'all know, there was a book that was published about Malcolm X, came out last month by Manny Marable, who was a Columbia history scholar, black history professor. Okay, he died just before the book got published within days. The book alleges that Malcolm X was involved in homosexual relations, and that he cheated on his wife, and that Betty Shabazz also cheated on him. Okay? His daughters are totally against the book. I'm totally against the book. Why am I against the book? Number one, there's no proof to any of the allegations in the book. And when you're talking about heroes, especially somebody like Malcolm X, who's probably one of the only untainted heroes we got, you have to be very careful before you introduce information that could stain an ancestor's legacy like that without proof. Even if he had the proof, I didn't see the need to introduce it because there was no benefit. But the issue was he had no proof. Now, I'm not going to blame Manning Marable for it, who's now an ancestor. You want to know why? Because I know how devilish some Europeans can be. They could have murdered him and changed his manuscript and then sent it to publication. If you haven't read the book, it's out there. It's not bad to read it so you can know what's being said, you know, but that's not something you want to share with your children. Okay, that's something that you probably want to share with them when they're old enough to really critically analyze written material. But if you notice, people go out their way to slander our heroes. Look how long it took for them to come out with the fact that Thomas Jefferson was child molesting a black girl, Sally Hemings. Okay? Look how long it took for them to talk about how George Washington had all those black kids, by his black slaves who he raped. If you notice, when they talk about white heroes, they hide their dirt. We got to find their dirt, because they don't bring it out. But when it comes to black heroes, they will manufacture dirt if it ain't done there to do what? Kill your will. Kill your will. Next slide. What is white Jesus doing in the black church? The images of white Jesus that were systematically created as the original black ones were suppressed were intentionally designed to increase the power of the white image in the black mind. Why do white people waste so much time recreating Jesus when there were already so many black ones? It's hard to enslave a people when the most powerful image that exists, which is God, looks exactly like them. The spirit will rebel against the servitude even if the conscious mind does not. Conversely, it's hard to mentally liberate a people whose God is in the image of their oppressor. That's right. You'll never be able to be race first as long as the image of your creator is not in your racial image. Next slide. If black adults want to be Negroes, that's our choice, but we should not be inculcating our children with these images. From the day they go to Sunday school, the minds of black children are inundated with pictures of white people in the Bible and white cartoons on television. Next slide. When my daughter turned 9, I took her to Toys R Us to get some dolls, some black dolls, because you know ain't nothing else coming in the house, right? They had 3 black dolls. 3! One of them had blonde hair, one of them had blue eyes, and the other one was dressed up like a shenanigan girl. Wow. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. And that's the images that they're giving our babies right now. Black versions of the Bible have been given to us. A sexualized half-naked Jesus who still passes the brown paper bag test and has a perm. In black paintings of Jesus, he's usually much less dressed than white Jesus. If any of you got if any of you have a black picture of Jesus, you will notice that he's a metrosexual Jesus. Next slide.
A brown paper bag.
If you are not as light as a brown paper bag or lighter, you were not allowed to live in certain neighborhoods. You were not allowed to join black fraternities and sororities. In fact, at one time, although not now, every black fraternity and sorority prevented membership to anybody darker than a brown paper bag. NAACP membership wasn't even open to you if you was darker than a brown paper bag. Okay. National Association for the Advancement of Certain Light-Skinned Blacks. Next slide. Oh, back one, please, my brother. White people kept pictures of black slaves in their homes to socialize their children to the proper social status and perspectives to have regarding blacks in America. These images have remained static to this day. Did you know in slavery, whenever a white child was born, they would make the oldest black person in the family bow down and kiss the feet of the white infant? Teaching racial inferiority. Next slide. Carl Jung. If you really want to read some good white psychology, even though he was a racist, his name was Carl Jung. He studied in Africa just like Sigmund Freud did. One thing you got to know about psychoanalysis, or the psychology of unconscious impulses, Sigmund Freud stole that from Africa. He spent time studying the Nile Valley civilizations in Africa. So did Carl Jung. If you ever get a picture of Sigmund Freud's office, guess what he got in his office? The statues of all the deities. That's right, Sigmund Freud. Why would he have statues of all the ancient African deities? He had the pictures of Abu Simbel, the Sphinx of Giza, and all of that. Because psychoanalysis is the stolen psychology of ancient Africa. And then he picked up right after Sigmund Freud, Carl Jung. He studied symbols. He said, wait a minute, in ancient Kemet, they got a symbol for everything. Maybe the symbol resonates with something in the spirit and in the unconscious. And in studying, guess what? He found that's exactly true, that the symbols resonate in the unconscious of people. And his whole psychology is about the psychology of symbols, which he calls archetypes. As archetypes penetrate consciousness, they influence. Listen to this now, this is a white psychologist. As symbols penetrate your consciousness, they influence the perceived experience of normal and neurotic people. A too powerful symbol may totally possess the individual and cause psychosis. Look at that. The power of a visual symbol. Next slide. Archetypal images expressed in religious dogma, in particular, this is him. He's talking about white Jesus. Listen to this. Symbolic images expressed in religious dogma, in particular, are thoroughly elaborated into formalized structures which, while by expressing the unconscious in a circuitous manner, prevent direct confrontation with it. Prevent direct confrontation with it. Prevent direct confrontation with it. You will never challenge the image of the white Jesus in your unconscious if it is embedded in the right way. Next slide. When I was in West Africa, guess what I was told? They told me that they never saw a picture of a black Jesus. I met black people in Africa who never saw a picture of a black Jesus. Every Jesus in Africa is European. Remember, before the colonizer comes in, who does he send in? The missionaries. That's right. To pacify you, to teach love, the human race theory, and then they come in with the guns. You know what they did when they took over Ghana, right? They made the kings get on their face and crawl up and kiss the feet of the governor. The therapeutic process takes the unconscious symbols into account in two ways. They are made as fully conscious as possible. See that? Make the unconscious symbol fully conscious, then they synthesize it with the conscious by recognition and acceptance. Next slide. This collective unconscious is considered to consist of pre-existent thought forms called symbols, which give form to certain psychic material, which then enters the conscious. Symbols are likened to instinctual behavior patterns. He's saying that black people have a collective unconscious. And in that collective unconscious is the symbols of slavery, the symbols of struggle, the symbols of inferiority. And they are passed down psychically from generation to generation, which means all the inferiority of your ancestors is still in you and will be in your children if you don't do away with it in your lifetime. Next slide. Abraham Lincoln as Jesus, you see him right here. They got all the people running around him looking for loaves of bread. If you notice, a lot of political images are painted like Jesus images because the image does what? Connects with the image in the unconscious. Connects with the image in the unconscious. Next slide. Obama as Jesus with his two wives, Mary Magdalene and the other one, Michelle and Oprah. Okay? Obama as Jesus. Next slide. What is a delusion? A delusion is a belief you hold to be true despite evidence to the contrary. What is a hallucination? A hallucination is a sensory perception that is not true. If I believe Jesus is white, that's a delusion. It's a belief. If I think I just saw a white Jesus walk across the stage, that's a hallucination. Are y'all with me? The belief is a delusion. The hallucination is the actual believing you see something. Somebody say, I hear people. That's hallucinatory. I just saw Jesus, he came to me last night. That's a hallucinatory. That's hallucinatory. But if they say, I believe I'm Jesus, that's a delusion. Next slide. Jesus as a deep thinker. Next slide. Jesus as the consoler of women. Next slide. White man as the giver of life. Next slide. This is the most popular white Jesus in the black community. By a show of hands, who still got this hanging up in their house? Don't lie. Raj, you got one. Who else got one? I know there's a couple houses in Syracuse with that one. This is the most popular Jesus in the black community. We was raised on that. Am I wrong? This is still in most of the churches. This exact one. Next slide. Jesus as the angel of God. Next slide. The power of symbols. The way Super Bowl commercials are so powerfully effective is that they relate to subliminal images to ones you already got in your mind in order to use previously learned symbols to strengthen their image. The effect of white Jesus wouldn't be as strong if blacks did not have mental memory of other symbols of white men already embedded in their unconscious. Next slide. A symbol is something that represents much more than what it appears on the surface. A symbol is something that represents something much more than what it appears on the surface. When you see a picture of Jesus, it ain't just saying that Jesus was white. It's saying that the white man is God. People say, does white Jesus matter in the church, Brother Umar? Of course, because if she grows up seeing white Jesus in church, and then she see the white cops on the street, and then they see the white teachers in school, and then you see the white men in the White House, she draws a conclusion. All white people are godly. That's why that image is so destructive. When you see a picture of white Jesus or the white man as God, it's easily acceptable because you have so many other images of the white man as God. Rocky Balboa, he beat Apollo twice.
And Mr. T.
And Mr. T. Did y'all know Rocky Balboa just got inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame? He's not a boxer. He's an actor. He's an actor. And you know what's so crazy? He's from Philadelphia, right? Now, Philadelphia got Meldrew Taylor. We got, who the brother Ali fought? World heavyweight champion. Frazier. We got Bernard Hopkins. Look at all the black heavyweight or boxing champions from Philadelphia. But instead of them getting inducted into the Boxing Hall of Fame, we're going to take a white actor and put him in the Boxing Hall of Fame. But guess what? We did the same thing. Did you know that the Black Hall of Fame in Arkansas put Bill Clinton in the Black Hall of Fame? Yes. Bill Clinton is in the Black Hall of Fame in Arkansas. Did you believe that? The Arkansas, because that's where he's from. Arkansas, they have a Black Hall of Fame, and the black people inducted him in the Black Hall of Fame. For what? Because he was the first black president. Obama the second. Next slide. Next slide. You know what? Go back to that one. Let me deal with that. The unconscious mind of the spirit makes meaning of the images in your mind by comparing, contrasting, grouping them with the others already in storage. Much like a computer, your unconscious must make sense of the images. It does not have the option of delete. Only you can do this. Remember this. When an image goes into your mind or the mind of the child, you can't just take it out unless you consciously work on it, or it will always stay there and fester. As Sigmund Freud says, you got to make the unconscious conscious. Next slide. Next. White man as the essence of God. Next. This is also popular in the black community. Okay? The bleeding Jesus, he died for our sins. The white man died for our sins. That automatically correlates with what? The white man died for your freedom in the Civil War. Next slide. White man dies for black people. Next slide. Guess what else that correlates with? John Brown. Y'all know who John Brown was? Led the raid on Harper's Ferry, Virginia, white man, 1859. You see? And he did fight to end slavery. You understand? But there's no belief, there's no proof anywhere that shows that John Brown believed in equality with black people. Next slide. Next slide. Oh, go back one. Give a man symbols or he will make them for himself. Did y'all hear that? This is what I have to remind my Islamic people about, because they say, well, we don't have images of Muhammad. Okay, good. But guess what? When you tell a black child Muhammad, they create an image. And you know who it looks like? It looks like the Arab. It looks like the Arab. Next slide. Look at this. Care not who writes the textbooks if you don't control the images within them. Care not who lives in a community if you can control the images therein. Next slide. Whenever they gentrify a black community, what's the first thing they do? Whenever they decide they're going to take back a black community, what's the first thing they do? They paint over all the black murals in the community. Study that. In every city in America, if they want to take it back, the first thing they find, you know how you put images on the side of the building? This is our community, Malcolm X, Dr. King, they paint them over. Because that's your connection. So they got to get rid of your connection by destroying the images. Next slide. Okay, Leonardo da Vinci painted the Last Supper in 1482. Columbus so-called discovered America in 1492. What's the relationship between the Last Supper in 1482 and Columbus in 1492? Because they was going to use the religion to take over the country. Okay, first, and if that didn't work, then they were bringing the military. It didn't work with a lot of Native Americans, so they brought the military in after the religion fell. But the Last Supper was painted to prepare for white supremacy's takeover of the world. And it's so sad because when you study colonialism in Africa and in the Caribbean, you see black people voluntarily giving up their native religion, being baptized. Guess who, when he painted this Last Supper, guess who Jesus was? His uncle. You can read this in history. Jesus was Leonardo da Vinci's uncle, and guess who the 12 disciples was? 12 criminals that he got to sit in from the local jail. Study it, yes. His uncle and 12 criminals. A rapist, a thief, a pedophile, credit card hustler. And this is hanging up on your wall. I went to a friend of mine's house. Her mother had one of these, almost as big as that size right there. And guess what? When you turn the lights off, it lights up at dark. So even when you sleep. Next slide. I don't know why y'all let y'all son sit on Santa Claus' lap. Some of y'all still doing that. Okay? Next slide. This is also powerful. Remember this movie? Okay? That's a very powerful. Next slide. This is in Brazil. There you go right there, the mountaintop. Look at that. This might be a black country, but look around. Look how white the stone is. Next slide. Homosexual Jesus. I call that the Michael Jackson Jesus. Look at the lips. Look at that very feminine characteristics. Look at the sign in the fingers.
What's that?
Okay? Okay? That goes back to what? White secret societies. Devil worship. Next slide. White man is the holiest of holies, all white. Next slide. Look at him. R&B singer. Next slide. White man is the cops, the insurance man, DHS. Next slide. Michelangelo painted the Sistine Chapel in 1508 for Pope Julius II, a few years after Da Vinci's Sistine Chapel. Next slide. I'm going to get to the black Jesus that we want to stop. White man is provider of the family. Next slide. Remember this movie came out? Yeah. Black mega churches would reserve 10 buses and take their whole black congregation to go to this movie that was made by Mel Gibson, who just got in trouble for making what? Private racial comments about black people. And we made this one of the top-selling religious movies of all time. Next slide. Now look what we did. When we made Jesus black, all we did was take the white one and do what? Give him a suntan. Look at his hair. He still got the whole Little Richard thing going on. Next slide. Look at it. Look. This is all we did. Look at what we did. Gay is half. Look. Next slide. Look, all you did was take him and give him a suntan. He still got a perm. Now look, the baby got natural hair, but he got a perm. Next slide. Look at that. The same picture. He got cornrows out there. I don't know. Next slide. Look, that's all we did. Next slide. And if you notice, everyone passes the brown paper bag test. Everyone. Now look, that is a feminization right there. Come get me. I'm free. Look. Why is he so naked? If you notice, every white Jesus I showed you was fully clothed. Did y'all notice that? Except the ones being crucified. Why is it all the black Jesuses are damn near all naked? Look at that. An effeminate and homosexualized savior.
Sexually charged.
Next slide, sexually charged. Now, remember the black angels, right? And then they gave us pickaninnies for the commercial. Look at that, the ripping the clothes off of her behind, right there. Black angels with the white angels. Y'all remember the Tasmanian devil from Bugs Bunny? Yeah. Do y'all know where that come from? Yeah. The British went to Tasmania, an island off of Australia, and killed every living black person there. There's no Tasmanians left in the world. And what does Walt Disney do? They create a cartoon from the Tasmanian people and call it the Tasmanian devil. How many of y'all knew, who was the guy that was always hunting Bugs Bunny with the long gun? How many of y'all knew that the original Elmer Fudd was black with big white lips? That's right, Elmer Fudd was supposed to be black. Next slide. Next slide. Okay, principles of Garveyism, Pan-African economic power. Next one, black image of God. Next one, Pan-African unity, African identity, Pan-African political power, race pride, Pan-African centralized nexus of power on the continent of Africa. That's the difference between a Pan-African nationalist and a black nationalist. People say, Brother Umar, you're a Pan-African nationalist. How is that different from a black nationalist? A black nationalist does not want to leave America. He simply wants America to give him a couple states so he can have his own kingdom here. He still wants the VCR play. He still needs the iPod. He still needs the DVD. He's a revolutionary with a Walkman. The Pan-Africanists, we want our nation centralized on the continent. As the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey said when he was asked whether he was an African or a Jamaican, he said, I will never give up a continent for an island. I am African. Yep. Next slide. Collective self-reliance, uncompromising courage and commitment. Next slide.
They made a song of
Next. Thank you for your time, good people. I got some CDs and DVDs over there if you partake. Thanks for the time. It's been good. If you got any family in Rochester, I'll be speaking in Rochester Sunday at 3 o'clock at the Frederick Douglass Resource Center at 36 King Street. So if you got any family in Rochester, tell them to come to the Frederick Douglass Resource Center, 36 King Street. I'll be speaking there Sunday, 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. All right. Parents, make sure you get my business card in case you ever need me for your youth. I'm going to get the mic back.
All right. We have another big black hand for this brother. Coming to bless our community. And again, like I said, this was on the African Urban Perspective. We were celebrating our 1-year anniversary, and we called it the Bakulu, which means Spirit of the Ancestors. Right now, I want to go through some of the contributors and co-sponsors that made this possible. First of all, we want to thank Brother T.J. Payne. Where is he? Brother T.J. Payne. Could you come over here, brother, and let the camera catch you? This brother is a core member of the African Urban Perspective, man, and he made a generous contribution to make this happen. Brother Anthony Johnson, could you come up here? This is another brother who shared the same vision. And he is a co-sponsor because of his contribution. Yes, sir. Give thanks. Brother Lawrence Davis of the Eco Cleaning and Laundromat, could you step forward, please? Yes, brother. Yes, these brothers share the same vision as I. Brother Baba, could you please step forward? And this brother right here, he brings in all the conscious material into the community. Left hand, brother. And if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have the materials that we have here in the city. So we thank you, Brother Baba. We want to thank Harlem Import, Brother Bob. He wasn't able to attend today. So we're going to give a shout out to Harlem Import. We also want to thank the Southwest Community Center. Sister Valerie Hill for her generous contribution. We want to give special thanks to Brother Greg Corridors, Brother Anthony B., Brother Ras Muhammad, Brother Rafri, and Chemo. Could you stop forward, please, brother? Oh, Ras, stop forward, because I mentioned your name. These is two of the brothers from the AU core members, been with me from the beginning, you know. So I just want to give a special thanks to these brothers for their contributions.
Everything is fine.
Left hand, brother. Yes, sir. Brother Bill Simmons, Brother Roy Neal, and Brother General Davis. I want to give a shout out to the black businesses that made this possible. So support your black businesses. The World of Music, Mr. HR Clothing, Timbuktu Imports, Jercut, Black Liquor, the National Action Network, Hope for Us Housing, the Cut King Barbershop, Studio 514, Afika's Beauty Salon, We Enterprise, ACN Independent, Brother Eddie Williams, and Bergen's Brother Clothing. All of these people made a contribution to make this event possible. And on that note, I want to end this, and again, thank you for attending our celebration, and we'll see you next year. Until then, peace, hold tight.